All right, so today we're going to try something a little bit different.
Okay.
We're diving deep into a collection of these like short descriptive pieces, and they all kind of revolve around this idea of tranquility. I know what you're thinking. Tranquility, that sounds a little too serene maybe,
Right.
but trust me, these pieces, they're far from boring.
Okay.
They're like these little glimpses into these peaceful worlds, and we're going to unpack what makes each one so calming.
You know, you're right. Tranquility, it might seem simple, like on the surface,
Yeah.
but there's actually a surprising amount of depth there
Yeah,
to explore.
absolutely.
It's not just about like the absence of noise or stress.
Right.
It's about this deeper sense of peace and contentment.
Totally. And so let's jump right in with the lighthouse keeper. I
Okay.
think this one really sets the scene beautifully.
Yeah.
We meet Elias, our lighthouse keeper.
Yeah.
And he's living this incredibly simple life, right? Just him, his cat Nimbus, out in this old lighthouse. And every night it's the same routine. Chamomile tea, a cozy woolen blanket, and then just stargazing.
So what I think is fascinating about this routine is how it taps into the power of predictability.
Oh, interesting.
You know, so think about it, like each action, brewing the tea, wrapping himself in that blanket,
Right.
it signals to his brain it's time to unwind, to relax.
Right.
It's like this comforting ritual that kind of eases anxiety
Yeah.
and allows him to be fully present in the moment.
It's like his whole life is a mindfulness exercise.
Exactly.
And you know, it's not just what he is doing, but what he isn't doing.
Right.
He's not caught up in the daily grind,
Uh-huh.
endless to-do lists, the constant notifications.
Yeah.
He's just existing fully present in his world.
Exactly. And that image of him, right, wrapped in his blanket,
Yeah.
watching the stars with Nimbus purring at his side.
Yeah.
It's almost like a visual representation of tranquility, isn't it?
It really is.
Makes you want to just curl up with a good book and a cup of tea.
Absolutely. So speaking of curling up, our next piece, the Forest of Echoes. This takes us to a very different kind of tranquil setting.
Okay.
A little bit more mystical,
Yeah.
a little more fantastical.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine a forest that doesn't just reflect sounds, but actual memories,
Wow.
but specifically positive memories.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we meet Finn,
Okay.
who stumbles into this forest clearing, and he's just completely exhausted
Right.
by the noise of life.
Yeah.
And as he sits there, surrounded by these ancient trees, he starts to hear these echoes of laughter.
Oh, wow.
Lullabies, words of kindness, all these beautiful remnants of happy moments.
It's the forest is this kind of emotional refuge.
Yeah.
This reminder that even in the midst of all the chaos and stress,
Right.
there's still so much goodness and beauty in the world.
It really is. And you think about the psychological impact
Right.
of those positive memories. You know, we know they can lift our moods,
And
boost our resilience, even help us to cope with difficult times.
Like the forest is providing a kind of therapy almost, recharging Finn's emotional batteries with these echoes of joy.
I love that. So it makes you wonder what kind of memories your personal forest would hold.
That's a good question.
Right. Would it be filled with laughter of loved ones? The comfort of a childhood lullaby? Or maybe even just the quiet satisfaction of a task well done?
It's a lovely thought,
It is.
isn't it? That even when we feel lost or overwhelmed, there's a part of us that still remembers those good times, the moments that brought us joy.
Absolutely.
And maybe, just maybe, we can access those memories, those
Yeah.
echoes of happiness whenever we need them most.
Okay, so from this mystical forest, we're moving on to something a bit more artistic.
Okay.
The cloud painter introduces us to Anwen.
Oh.
And she lives in a sky village. How cool is that? And she paints clouds
What?
with feathered brushes.
I love the whimsy of that image. And her art is so ephemeral,
Right.
so fleeting.
Yeah.
The clouds she paints are constantly changing, drifting apart, eventually disappearing altogether. But even though they're temporary, they still have this incredible power to soothe and comfort people.
It's almost counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is.
You'd think that something so transient
Right.
wouldn't have such a lasting impact.
Yeah.
But maybe that's part of the appeal. It's like she's reminding people to appreciate the beauty in the moment because it might not last forever.
I think you've hit on something really important there.
Yeah.
Anwen's art, it's not about creating something permanent or unchanging.
Right.
It's about embracing the beauty of impermanence.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's a key element of tranquility.
Mm-hmm.
You know, accepting that everything's in constant flux
Yeah.
and finding peace within that flow.
Okay, so from the ephemeral beauty of cloud paintings, we're going to shift gears to a piece that explores a very different kind of tranquility, the clockmaker's garden.
Okay.
This one's all about finding harmony between the natural world and the precision of well clocks.
It's a fascinating juxtaposition.
It is.
You wouldn't necessarily think of clocks and gardens as being complementary, would you?
No, not at all.
But our clockmaker, Leora,
Yeah.
she seems to have found this beautiful balance between the two.
She's got these vibrant flowers blooming everywhere, these tiny clocks hanging from the branches of trees.
Oh.
And the sounds, the ticking clocks, the birds singing, they all blend together to create this strangely soothing symphony.
It's like she's orchestrated this perfectly balanced world where nature and mechanics coexist in harmony.
I love that, and what's intriguing to me is how she finds peace in both the order and the structure of her craft and the seemingly random beauty of nature.
It's almost as if she sees the intricate workings of a clock,
Right.
reflected in the growth of a plant, the turning of the seasons.
It makes me wonder, do you think she's suggesting that there's a hidden order within nature? Or is she simply finding beauty in the contrast itself, the juxtaposition of the predictable mechanical world with the organic, ever-changing world of her garden?
That's a great question, and I think it gets to the heart of what this piece is exploring.
Yeah.
Maybe tranquility isn't about escaping the complexities of the world, but about finding new ways to appreciate them,
Yeah.
to find beauty and order in the midst of chaos.
Absolutely. From this structured tranquility of Leora's clock-filled garden, we are transported to a place where time seems to flow differently,
Okay.
where the pace of life slows to a whisper.
Right.
Get ready to experience the floating market.
Ooh, this one is all about atmosphere.
Yeah.
So imagine like a moonlit lagoon surrounded by weeping willows, and a market that only appears under the full moon.
It's like stepping into a dream.
It is.
Seriously, boats bobbing gently filled with these soft fabrics, jars of honey and flowers that seem to glow in the moonlight.
Yeah.
It's like time itself slows down
It does.
in this hushed, almost reverent atmosphere.
And the pace of life is completely different here.
Right.
Like no one's rushing.
Uh-huh.
Everyone's speaking in hushed tones, as if they're afraid to break the spell.
Yeah.
It's a stark contrast to the frantic energy of our everyday world.
It really is. And it makes me think of that concept of flow state.
Right.
You know, that feeling of being completely absorbed in an activity where you lose track of time
Yeah.
and everything else just fades away. It's like
Yeah.
the floating market itself is a kind of flow state, the place where people can escape the pressures of life
Right.
and just be present in the moment.
It's a brilliant observation.
Yeah.
And you're right, that sense of presence, of being fully immersed in the experience,
Uh-huh.
can be incredibly calming and restorative.
Yeah.
Allows us to kind of disconnect from that constant chatter of our minds
Right.
and connect with something larger than ourselves.
So speaking of disconnecting, our next piece, The Sleepy Harbor,
Okay.
takes us to a place that feels like it's at the very edge of the world.
Where the ships never hurry.
Yes.
I love that detail. It immediately sets a sense of timelessness and tranquility.
Me too. And the descriptions are so evocative.
Yeah.
The tide's lullaby rocking the boats, lanterns floating like sleepy fireflies. It's like a lullaby for the soul.
It is. And then there's Jonah, the old sailor who sits on the dock spinning yarns for anyone who will listen.
Right.
But his stories aren't about these grand adventures or daring exploits.
Yeah.
They're about the simple pleasures of life.
Yeah.
Finding a beautiful seashell, watching the sunrise, sharing a cup of tea with a friend.
Which is such a powerful reminder in our fast-paced world, isn't it?
It is.
We're so often focused on achieving big things, chasing extraordinary experiences, that we forget to appreciate the simple joys that are right in front of us.
Absolutely. And I think Jonah's stories highlight the importance of gratitude.
Yeah.
When we take the time to appreciate the small things, even the mundane moments,
Right.
we open ourselves up to a deeper sense of peace and contentment.
Yeah.
It's not about seeking out something extraordinary,
Right.
but noticing the beauty in what already is.
And how it contrasts with the hustle and bustle of the world we're used to.
Exactly.
This sleepy harbor feels like a refuge, a place to escape that constant pressure to do
Yeah.
and just be.
It reminds me of the saying, don't just do something, sit there. Sometimes the most tranquil thing we can do is simply slow down, breathe, and appreciate the stillness.
Okay, ready for our final stop on this tranquility tour?
I am?
This one's a bit more melancholic, perhaps, but also strangely comforting.
Okay.
Let's step into the Library of Lost Dreams.
Ah, yes. This one always makes me think about the paths not taken.
Yeah.
The dreams we've forgotten or let go of.
Right.
But there's a beauty in that too, isn't there?
Absolutely. So picture this. A town shrouded in perpetual twilight.
Okay.
Already we're in a different kind of tranquility, right?
We are.
And a library filled with endless shelves of these fragile glass bottles.
Each bottle containing a forgotten dream. I can almost see them shimmering in the dim light.
Right, and the librarian Morel, she cares for these dreams with such tenderness. She dusts the bottles, and sometimes she even uncorks them,
Wow.
letting the dreams swirl into the air.
It's like she's acknowledging that even though these dreams have been forgotten,
Yeah.
they still hold value. They're still worthy of care and attention.
It's a beautiful metaphor, isn't it?
It is.
For the way our past experiences,
Right.
even the ones we've forgotten or the dreams we've let go of, still shape who we are.
Mm-hmm.
They're a part of our story, even if they're not actively playing out in our lives right now.
Right.
And there's something so comforting in the idea that no dream is ever truly lost.
Yeah.
Even if we can't remember them, they're still somewhere out there,
Mm.
swirling around in this ethereal library,
Yeah.
waiting to be rediscovered.
It's a reminder that our dreams, our aspirations, our hopes and fears,
Uh-huh.
they're all part of what makes us human.
Absolutely.
And even the dreams that don't come true,
Right.
they still have the power to teach us, to inspire us, to connect us to something larger than ourselves.
So we've journeyed through these 7 tranquil worlds.
We have, each one unique and captivating in its own way.
Yeah.
What strikes you as the common thread here? What makes these snippets so calming, so appealing?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
It is.
Each piece creates such a distinct atmosphere, but they all seem to tap into this like deep human longing for peace and stillness, a sense of connection with something larger than ourselves.
I completely agree. And it's not about escaping reality, is it?
Right.
It's more about finding these pockets of peace and beauty within the world, within ourselves.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that tranquility, it's not a destination, it's a state of being.
That's such a good point. It's not about reaching some perfect state of serenity,
Right.
but about cultivating a sense of peace and presence in the midst of our everyday lives.
Exactly.
So if we were to distill all these tranquility lessons into like a few key takeaways,
Okay.
what do you think they'd be?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's about being present. You know, whether it's through these mindful routines like Elias the Lighthouse Keeper,
Yeah.
or simply by noticing the beauty of a sunrise like Jonah the Sailor.
Right.
Being present in the moment allows us to kind of step out of the constant chatter of our minds
Yeah.
and find a sense of stillness.
And I love how these pieces remind us that tranquility doesn't have to be grand or elaborate.
Right.
You know, it can be found in the simplest of things. A cup of tea, a gentle breeze, a moment of quiet contemplation.
Absolutely. And it's also about finding what resonates with you.
Yes.
What brings you a sense of peace?
Right.
Is it the order and structure of Leora's garden?
Yeah.
The ephemeral beauty of Anwin's cloud art? The mystical comfort of the Forest of Echoes?
Right.
You know, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to tranquility.
Absolutely. It's about discovering what works for you and incorporating those elements into your life.
Exactly.
Maybe it's creating a calming bedtime ritual like Elias, or surrounding yourself with natural beauty like Finn. Or maybe it's even finding a creative outlet that allows you to express yourself like Anwin.
And perhaps most importantly,
Yeah.
it's about remembering that tranquility. It's not a destination, but a journey. You know, it's something we cultivate, something we practice, something we return to again and again, especially when life feels chaotic or overwhelming.
So true. And speaking of returning, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive into tranquility.
Okay.
But before we do, I'd love to leave our listeners with something to ponder.
Always a fan of a good pondering.
Right.
What do you have in mind?
Well, we've explored all these different paths to tranquility,
We have.
but I'm curious which one resonated with you the most and why.
That is a great question.
Right.
And maybe even more importantly, what small step could you take today
Yeah,
to bring a little bit of that specific tranquility into your own life?
exactly. It doesn't have to be a huge change.
Right.
You know, maybe it's simply taking 5 minutes to sit outside and appreciate nature,
Right.
or listening to a calming piece of music. The important thing is to make that conscious effort to cultivate more peace in your life.
Beautifully said. Even the smallest actions can have this ripple effect.
Yeah.
You know, creating a sense of calm that extends outward into our relationships and our communities.
So, dear listener, we encourage you to take a moment, reflect on these tranquil worlds we've explored, and see what sparks joy, what brings a sense of peace, what whispers to your soul.
Yeah.
Don't forget, there's a whole universe of tranquility waiting to be discovered, one quiet moment at a time.
And sometimes those quiet moments are closer than we think.
Yeah.
We just need to open our eyes, our ears, our hearts, and really see them.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into tranquility. Until next time, may your days be filled with peace and your nights with restful dreams.